In the dead of night, armed men stormed the home of Mir Ahmad bin Qasim, dragging him away in chains and blindfolded. His 4-year-old daughter, unable to comprehend the horrific events unfolding around her, ran after him barefoot, holding his shoes in a desperate attempt to keep him close, uttering the words, "Take father," as though she thought he was simply leaving. That moment of separation would mark the beginning of 8 agonizing years for bin Qasim, during which he would be held in solitary confinement, shackled and blindfolded, without any explanation of where he was, why he was imprisoned, or what crime he had committed. His case is not an isolated one, but part of a much larger and deeply troubling pattern of disappearances in Bangladesh, particularly under the leadership of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, whose government has been accused of extrajudicial killings, enforced disappearances, and a culture of impunity. Bin Qasim's abduction is part of what is known as the disappeared group, individuals who were critics of Hasina's regime and as a result became victims of the brutal authoritarian tactics employed by her government. Mir Ahmad bin Qasim, a 40-year-old British-trained barrister, is now one of Bangladesh's most prominent cases of enforced disappearance. His connection to the political turmoil in Bangladesh, the Awami League Party, and the regime led by Sheikh Hasina underscores the complex, controversial relationship that has developed between British politics, Bangladeshi politics, and the international human rights community. Bin Qasim's case stands as a stark reminder of the extrajudicial measures taken by Hasina's government to suppress dissent, leaving countless families in anguish over the unexplained fates of their loved ones. Hasina, who has been in power for more than 20 years in 2 separate terms, was recently ousted from office in August of the previous year. Her regime was notorious for the most significant violence in Bangladesh since its War of Independence in 1971. Over 90 people lost their lives in violent clashes on the last day of her time in office, highlighting the extreme measures the government had taken to retain power. Among her political connections and family members is Tulip Siddique, a Labour Member of Parliament MP in the UK, who also happens to be Hasina's niece. Siddique's close familial ties to the Bangladesh Prime Minister have become a subject of intense scrutiny, particularly following her resignation as the UK's anti-corruption minister after allegations surfaced about corruption involving her family. These allegations included claims that Siddique's relatives embezzled up to £3.9 billion from infrastructure projects in Bangladesh. Additionally, Siddique was accused of benefiting from properties in London that were allegedly linked to her aunt's political allies. While Siddique vehemently denied the allegations, the UK's ethics watchdog concluded that she did not breach the Ministerial Code. However, despite the findings, Siddique chose to resign, and her departure from the cabinet raised serious questions about the nature of her political connections and the possible conflicts of interest they created. This, however, was not the end of the matter. Siddique's resignation and her ongoing political career have opened up a wider discussion about Sir Keir Starmer's judgment in appointing her as the anti-corruption minister in the first place. The decision to appoint Tulip Siddique to such a high-profile position raises critical concerns about Labour's handling of her connections to the Bangladesh government and the broader implications for the party. The timing of Siddique's resignation, following years of increasing scrutiny, prompts a re-evaluation of how Labour, under Starmer's leadership, has engaged with the Bangladeshi diaspora and whether this engagement has led to political missteps. Labour's long-standing ties to Sheikh Hasina's Awami League Party have been a matter of public record for years. Despite Siddique's prominent position within the Labour Party, there has been little to no indication that the party has distanced itself from the Awami League's practices or policies, which many human rights organisations have condemned. Siddique has long campaigned on issues related to human rights, such as advocating for the release of British Iranian national Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe from Iran's prisons. However, her lack of public commentary on the numerous human rights violations committed by her aunt's regime in Bangladesh, such as the enforced disappearances and extrajudicial killings, has been conspicuously absent. Moreover, Siddique's prior political engagements with the Awami League have raised concerns about her impartiality when it comes to issues of corruption, human rights, and governance. Siddique has attended meetings alongside her aunt and other prominent members of the Awami League, and in 2015 she publicly thanked the party for their support during her election campaign. These connections were not hidden, but they were certainly downplayed by both Siddique and the Labour Party when she took on the role of anti-corruption minister. For many, these links should have been red flags. In 2016, Bin Qasim's case was first brought to Siddique's attention, yet there was little to no public acknowledgement of his plight or the broader issue of enforced disappearances under Hasina's rule. Investigative journalist David Bergman, who has been following Siddique's connections to Bangladeshi politics for years, argues that there has long been a blind spot in both the UK media and the Labour Party regarding Siddique's failure to address the systemic issues within the Bangladeshi government. The party's lack of foresight and failure to act upon these concerns highlights a broader issue with political pragmatism overshadowing moral accountability. The Labour Party's reluctance to scrutinise Siddique's political background can likely be attributed to the desire to cultivate support among the large Bangladeshi diaspora in the UK. The Bangladeshi vote, particularly in areas like East London, is considered essential for Labour's success in key constituencies. However, Labour's warm relationship with the Awami League has backfired. According to sources, such political alliances need to be carefully managed, as openly supporting one faction of the Bangladeshi political spectrum could alienate other parts of the community. As analysis from the Financial Times suggests, there are several constituencies in the UK where the Bangladeshi population is a significant political force, and this voting bloc is becoming increasingly influential. In Sir Keir Starmer's constituency of Holborn and St Pancras, there are at least 6,000 voters of Bangladeshi origin. The growing importance of this demographic likely influenced Starmer's decision to foster closer ties with the Bangladeshi government. Still, this alignment with the Awami League and Siddique's family has also drawn attention for all the wrong reasons. Starmer's failure to adequately address the corruption and human rights concerns surrounding Siddique's connections to Bangladesh reflects a deeper issue within Labour's strategy. His attempts to appeal to the Bangladeshi community in the UK may have clouded his judgment when it came to the appointment of Siddique as anti-corruption minister. Political pragmatism in this instance appears to have clashed with the Labour Party's stated values of transparency, justice and human rights. Meanwhile, Bin Qasim, whose tragic experience represents a fraction of the suffering caused by Hasina's regime, is left to grapple with the aftermath of his imprisonment. When he was finally released and returned home, he was unable to recognise his own daughters, now young women. He reflects sorrowfully on the years he lost, the memories that were stolen, and the moments of his daughters' lives that he will never be able to reclaim. For him, the haunting memory of his forced separation from his children is compounded by the painful reality that the regime responsible for his suffering remains unaccountable. As Siddique continues to serve as a Labour MP, and as the corruption investigations into her family and Bangladesh's political elite rumble on, it remains to be seen how Labour will navigate this increasingly controversial issue. The tragic fate of Mir Ahmad bin Qasim and the questions surrounding Siddique's political ties present a dilemma for the party and raise difficult questions about its approach to ethics, human rights and governance.